you have a tell. When you got very nervous, you started rubbing your face and stuff. Have you noticed that or no?
No. No, it's
There's that tell. Do you see the tell?
I saw the tell.
You saw the tell.
I saw it.
Yeah, better lie to show consideration.
Does anybody have any thoughts here on the last show? Bill, do you have any observations
I thought the
or thoughts?
issues, whether it was police violence, whether it was civil unrest, whether it was what criminals, I think we all flowed and complemented one another in our thoughts and our words.
Considering it was a cops and robbers theme, I mean, with Ivory here as well, you agreed on a lot of stuff. I mean, you and Cyrus were pretty much, he was kind of sticking up for you for a lot of stuff.
And vice versa.
We're both in businesses, and in businesses there were good and there were bad characters, and it just so happened that our exposure with one another and the things that we were involved with, we were in agreement that we took care of business on both sides.
My father was a great philosopher about that. He said to the FBI agents when they came to his home, he was usually FBI agents after him. He said, listen, you got your job to do, I'll be there. Tell me the names of my crew that you want, and I'll make sure they're there so you don't go to their home and disturb their wife and children. I will make sure they show up, and they did.
Well, you have a tell. When we were talking, I noticed, and I asked, I said, Bill, stop me if I'm wrong, and you got very nervous. You started rubbing your face and stuff. Have you noticed that or no?
No.
And stop me if I'm wrong, Bill. It puts cops in a bad light. You always struck me as a very, cool character, right? I mean, you're not very emotional. You respond as opposed to react.
Yeah, you take it all in, digest it, and then say, okay, now let me tell you what I see here.
I was talking about something, I can't remember what it was, and I said, Bill, stop me if I'm wrong, and then you just started rubbing your nose and stuff. I said, well, it looks like Bill has a tell.
You know, I guess I didn't want to step on anybody with anything extra, but...
Right. Jimmy, when we get together, maybe we can have a poker game with Bill, because he's got a lot of tells. We can make some money off him.
That's right. I don't play
Okay. You've been a lifelong cop. Do you actually look at Jimmy? Is there a sense of envy because he led this life that was kind of like, why are you making the face?
Don't envy me.
Well, I'm not asking you, I'm asking him.
But
he should. On some level, though, on some, because you did everything right, and he did everything wrong.
Well, I respected Jimmy because he wasn't just a guy that was follower. He got out there, and he was creative. He implemented. He made it work. He shared his riches with himself. He didn't, because when you start sharing your riches with everybody.
Wait a minute. What do you mean? What's he talking about? Sharing riches with everyone else?
My money was my money. Like
yeah, but when you say riches,
well, it's kind of like it was independent. Independence.
Right, correct.
I remember when he started talking about survival, because you really that was a really big central theme here. When you started talking about almost excusing on some level what you did, right? I mean, on some level, right? Can we say that? Is that fair game to say?
Excusing.
Right. And then Ivory touched up on the survival aspects a little bit as well.
I remember that.
I remember, though, there was one point, though, where I felt you kind of countered him because he said, hey, man, it's survival. And then you said, yeah, but you don't see him operating in panic mode. That was the line. And I felt, as I was watching the show, I felt that you were almost trying to counter what he's saying, which maybe the subtext might have been, let's not sort of harp too much on the survival part of it, because a guy who is trying to survive is usually nervous. You know, you're trying to get your shit together and you're trying to get, but you said the opposite. You said, I don't see you operating in panic mode, basically countering what he's saying for the survival aspects. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, I meant Jimmy as a survivor, that he was able to do what he had to do. He made a living at it. And
I felt like you were trying to offer an alternative to what he was saying, because on some level, Jimmy is making an excuse on some level. Because when he says survival, part of what he's saying is, I didn't really understand what I was doing, right? And when you say, yeah, but I don't really see you operating in panic mode, you're saying you understood what you were doing.
But why are you linking survival with panic? Why are you linking the two together?
Well, because if somebody is trying to survive,
Right.
They're not such a cool cucumber. I mean, they're not a cool customer.
But if
other
you're
words, if
in
they-
survival mode, but you're surviving, why am I panicking?
I meant that he was even keeled. That it's not like he was at the last resort and just getting by surviving. He was smooth. He saw he had a product to distribute. The product went out, and
I like the way you refer to it as a product. Do you refer to it as a product?
It is a product.
It's
yeah,
a product.
and a service. And it went out. He was in control of it.
You know, Cyrus said something in the last show. He said that these are good guys, but if you sit somewhere else from a different perspective, which is kind of what you're talking about, right? So you guys are up in the conference room and you're getting to know each other and it's all light and funny and he's laughing and she's laughing. So it's a whole different perspective. However, though, maybe if you saw Jimmy, if we took a look back 20 years ago, 25 years ago, and we saw maybe some of the things he did and we visualized on those things, we might have a very different perspective of Jimmy.
Then seeing me out there also, they have a different perspective of me. You know,
What kind of different perspective would have of you?
Look at was he a gunslinger? Who was that? You know, Mr. Tough is.
Anyone you go back, I mean, nobody's
Anywhere you
perfect.
go back.
Tony, I remember we were talking, you had a really funny line that cracked me up when I said, well, you came from the world you came from, and you turned to me and you said, I came from Williamsburg, Brooklyn.
Yeah.
You understand what I was trying to say, though. I was trying to say that you came from a very primitive world because you grew up in that lifestyle, because your father was who he was, right? Do you miss that life?
I missed the age bracket, yeah.
You miss being young,
Yeah.
right? But you don't miss the life, though.
Yeah, when people say, what would you change? What part of your life did you like the most? Of course, when I was the Prince of Vegas.
Patrick, thank you for coming.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I appreciate it. Patrick is, you know, because Cyrus had I mean, it was touch and go with him, but he kind of canceled at the last minute, and Patrick was nice enough to come in at the last minute. So, Patrick, just a little about you. You're from Brooklyn originally.
Yeah, I do sound work, and I also work in a Whole Foods that's separately owned by the conglomerate Whole Foods that's out there, but owned by Amazon.
Your parents still live in Brooklyn?
Yes, my
and
parents
you said you have 2 or 3 brothers?
I have 2 brothers. I'm the middle child.
Close family you
Yeah,
have?
pretty close. My mother and father, they raised us pretty much what they knew how to raise us, and they did a good job.
Does that mean that the way they knew how to raise you might have been lacking a bit?
Yeah, of course, because you think about it, my parents are from Haiti. They're coming from a different country, and their style of living is totally different from what they were presented here in the U.S.
Right.
They did what they could do, you know. They had to work 2 jobs. My mother and father were never home together at one time. They sent us to Haiti when we were younger because they didn't have anyone to babysit us. So they made a lot of sacrifices.
Jimmy, why the
you
face?
smiling?
Why the face?
Why are you smiling? No, only because a lot of what he says, I'm the middle too. 2 brothers.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I was going to say
Middle.
that there
and I was the only white in a black neighborhood.
there are similarities between the 2 of you, but yet
Yeah,
2 different lives.
Yeah, of course.
Very different
well,
lives.
We all have different lives.
Yes, yes.
When you were doing what you were doing as a young man, did you ever actually say, at some point you woke up and you go, what the fuck am I doing, man?
I did it when I got older.
Right, but never in
Not
your
when
20s
I
and
was
30s.
younger. In the 30s, early 30s.
In your early
Did I
30s.
get busted then? No. I might have did it.
You got busted
Actually,
in your
before
40s.
I got busted. It was before I got busted because how long am I going to keep doing what I'm doing?
Right. Why did you say that? Did you say that because you
It's
thought
not
you
a
might
life.
get busted?
It's not a life.
It's not a life.
But I was so far in, it's not a life.
Yeah, but many
what am I
people would
doing?
ar- and
The
many-
money's great.
Many people would argue that it is a life because you're making
No,
some
but
great
it's not
money.
a life. It's not a life.
It's not a life because of the fact of the paranoia aspects?
Paranoia, worrying about who you're going to run into, who's going to screw you, it's not a life you want to live. It's really not a life you want to live.
You always have to look over your head.
No, I didn't have to look over my head because the people I dealt with, I knew. I didn't go outside my circle.
Right.
I knew my parameters, so I stayed within my parameters.
Yeah, but on some level, though,
The reason I got busted.
You're selling drugs. I mean,
No. I told you, I sold drugs to people I knew.
just to people you knew.
People I knew. The way I got busted was because the guy I was picking it up from, him and his wife, dealt with narcs. So they tapped the phones and caught me in on conversation. So it wasn't me that they got busted and I got caught because of them. I would never have gotten caught.
That must have been a wide circle. I mean, it can't be 2 or 3 people.
No, it was a fairly wide circle.
When you say the people you knew, It's like a guy having a bakery and he knows his customers.
No,
that
but these are people
walk
I
in.
grew up with. These are people I hung with. I mean, sure, could one of them have got busted and ratted? Yeah. But
Right.
these aren't the people I ratted. These are people, most of them had decent jobs, work, you know.
I mean, I
worked
remember
and did
having a
their thing.
conversation with you not too long ago, and I think you alluded to the fact that if you're in that world, he must have done some things that to maintain that world, right?
Yes.
Yes.
You do what you have to do, but you do within reason because of the people you're dealing with. I mean, what am I going to do? Am I going to, excuse my French, am I going to fuck somebody up over $2,000 or
Are you?
$3,000? No.
No. How about
Possibly
10,000?
10,000 different. But 2,000 or 3,000, what do I got? If I go after someone for 2,000 or 3,000, all they got to do is drop a dime.
Right.
That's all they got to do is make one phone call, and I'm done. Right?
Bill, what are your thoughts on that?
Jimmy, it sounds like Jimmy's supplier must have had a real big business. I mean,
He had a big business.
I mean, to go up on a wiretap and then to catch you in that, you know, you were like collateral damage.
Exactly, that's what it was.
Yeah.
He was the idiot he was dealing with me, dealing with whoever else, and then they were dealing heroin to a narc, and that was it.
Yeah, which means it must have been a real ongoing
Yeah.
investigation.
It's very tough for human beings to accept a different narrative in their life, other than the narrative sometimes of what they have been conditioned with. Whether you learn from your family or your friends when you're 5, 6, 7, 10, whatever, you grew up in that world. When you're young, you do silly things, right?
Of course.
Was there ever,
Go on, just say it.
have you ever been around somebody who does something really stupid, right? We all have, right?
Yeah.
And when I say stupid, I mean like shockingly stupid. Okay?
Go on.
And then they turn around and they say, I was drunk.
And blame it.
And blame it on the alcohol, right? Now here's the deal.
I don't accept that, but go on.
You don't accept that.
I don't accept it.
You
You
don't
take
accept-
responsibility
No,
for
but
your actions.
yeah, but here's the deal, though. Here's the deal. If you're drunk, you could do something stupid. An example of that would be if somebody sexually assaulted a woman and he said he was drunk. That's shockingly stupid.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
And
You
I
don't get
wouldn't-
you don't
that's-
get the excuse for
You don't
that.
get
No.
it, period. You don't have to
Exactly.
be drunk or fucking
Yeah.
shooting heroin. I don't care what you are.
If you understand the shockingly stupid aspects of that and you can't excuse it with alcohol,
Correct.
can't we say in the same vein that the stuff that you've done cannot be excused because of your youth?
No,
Why?
because it was my norm.
How do you fight against the fact that maybe somebody's an alcoholic and that's his norm?
You're right, and what I did dealing drugs is shockingly stupid.
You can't excuse it for survival, can you?
You can excuse that as survival.
Right.
Because if you need, because it's kind of like going into like a hustler's mentality. If you need to make money right then and there, you know, and you can't like go to college and get a working profession, what's quick? Drugs. That's how you survive. So in a way, and then that just becomes your norm, you know? That's what you're being conditioned to. That's how you're being socialized, is to do drugs.
Right.
It's to sell drugs. So yeah, that's your way of surviving.
So your point is he just didn't know anything else that was different. He just, that's what he knew. You
Yeah.
His neighborhood culture.
It's the norm, and
That's
it
what
still
he-
is today. I'm sure. I mean, I'm not out in it. I don't know. I mean, are there
Yeah,
guys?
it
I mean,
still, it still
what
happens.
goes on?
It still happens.
I'm sure there's still coke out there and marijuana and freaking
Weed,
every
heroin?
other drug that's out. Heroin is the biggest epidemic in the country.
It's conditioning. This is what you've been taught. This is what you know, and it becomes the norm for you. And people, they don't go out their comfort zone. This is probably what they feel comfort in doing.
That's it. There were times I would drive. I had to drive somewhere, and I have 2 keys in the back of my car.
right.
None of you, maybe Tony, but none of you, and I was normal. It was nothing, you know?
Right.
It was nothing.
There
You
was
get
no-
used to it. It's normal.
You didn't feel a sense of pressure.
No pressure.
No.
But it becomes where, you know, the first time you do it, it's like you start to sweat and like, you know, is there a cop behind me and this and that? And then it's become, no, I got to go here. I'll do what I got to do. And it's just, you know, are you thinking about it? It's in your mind, but it's the norm.
And after what,
Now,
you
if
just
I
get
told
used
any
to it.
one of you to do it, you couldn't do it. You
Right.
couldn't. For the life of you, you would never get behind that wheel.
Time out. We don't know that because if a human being is in dire straits and there's a desperate life there that he's facing, nobody knows what they're going to do.
But at that point, I wasn't in dire straits.
Right.
I was making money. I was okay.
Right.
But none of you could get in that car right now. Maybe Tony. I don't know, because the way he was brought up. But I don't even know if Tony could.
Right.
Because I don't know if that was Tony's thing. Tony
Right.
had a different thing going
I
on.
never experienced with drugs.
Yeah, that's what I mean. I mean, I'm looking at what? How much time am I looking at? 2
Probably
keys?
intent
What
to
am I
s-
looking at?
Intent to sell, you're looking at 25.
Exactly.
I wouldn't try to do that. That wouldn't even. I was put in that situation a couple of times where people did want me to help them move some weight, and I got out of it. You know,
Smart.
I thought about it and I was like, it's not worth it.
When he says when he was in the drug business, it was stupid. He was in there for monetary reasons. It was a business. It wasn't stupid. It was business. Today it's a business. Yes, it's a shit business that we gamblers call it in the number business.
I often wonder how much of what we do is governed by your conditioning as a child, right? Because there must
I
have
was
been.
in the street. I mean,
You weren't in the street when you were 5.
Dude,
I'm
I was in the street, Tommy.
When
I
you
was
were
in the
5?
street. I was in the street. I mean, I mean, I had a house. I
So
went
you're telling
home.
me that
I
you-
slept.
you-
I
so
played in the. I was in the street. I was a street
Right, but
kid.
what you're saying to me is your parents were neglectful on some level.
Not neglectful. In the 50s and 60s, it's not like it is now. It's
Right.
just not.
Well, the question
you know, where
is
you have your
that-
playtime till you're 21 years old. I ran in the streets. There was no. I was out. I was 10, 11 years old, out till midnight.
Right.
In this, yard playing ball and hanging.
I wonder how much of it is predestined. In other words, if there's something in your DNA.
No, my brother's a lawyer.
That's exactly what I'm getting to. So the thing is that you say that you did it for survival, but your brother, he
My
didn't
brother
need to
did all
survive.
right.
He went to school
He
and he
did all
became
right.
he became
I
an
think he
ADA.
learned from us.
How do you reconcile with that? How do
Because
you,
I was older. He was the youngest. So I think he learned from what I was doing wrong.
Oh, that's interesting.
That's what I'd like to think anyway.
Did your money help pay his tuition?
No. He got a scholarship.
Jimmy, did you have older friends growing up?
No, but we were all, I mean, my brother, I had 2 brothers, younger, I was middle, like Patrick, middle and older. My older brother had his, I had mine. My younger brother would hang out a little bit with us, but never anything to do with my business.
Were your older brothers friends, characters, so
No,
to speak?
no. My older brother wasn't even living with us anymore. He stayed up in Westchester. We moved to Queens, and I got into it when I moved to Queens. My older brother had 0 influence on me. So then it was just me.
So the street culture kind of like
Without a doubt,
took
because
you
that's
in.
all I knew. I was working in
gotcha.
clubs, I was working in bars. I mean, I was around people
Your
constantly.
exposure, right? Okay.
Hey, I'm around
That's what
people.
happens.
Hey, you want to do some blow? I can hook you up. And I'm in the club business, and everybody's doing it back then. And then I just grew and grew and grew and grew, and that's how it went.
and you maintain that the reason why your brother became a district attorney is because he looked at you.
No,
and
I'm
he
not going to
said-
say that, Thomas. I don't know. I don't know.
Well, that's what you just said.
No, I said it's possible.
Go ahead,
It's
Ivory.
possible.
Or to the point of that, like you're born with like predestined.
Well, that is true. I mean, it's been proven by scientists that people have certain genes. I mean, if you look, not so, it's not as severe as what Jimmy is, but if you look at like sociopathic killers, like mass murderers, and again, I don't know how true this is, but I have read reports that there might be something in your DNA that sort of not necessarily predisposes you to what kind of crimes you're going to commit, but there's, for lack of a better word, an evil gene.
Well, if you're talking about sociopaths and psychopaths, actually many of them don't commit a crime at all.
What are you talking about?
If a sociopath or a psychopath,
Yeah.
many of them actually.
You're talking about like the sociopaths next door,
Yeah.
which they live among us, which basically
Yeah.
what you're saying is that people that do things that might hurt somebody else, and they do it without no responsibility and no regard whatsoever. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, that's one thing.
Yeah.
Now,
You're talking about the film business.
now doing a crime for monetary reasons is something completely different.
Right.
Like how we said before, that has to do with survival.
Right.
So let's separate those two.
Sure.
100%.
That's why Ivory's here. She makes
like her.
excellent points.
Now to the second point
Yes, ma'am.
I'm the oldest sister of all of my family.
Right.
And my little brother, he's 14 right now.
Right.
And he's in the streets. You know, he's a young black boy who, I don't know exactly to what extent some of his crimes are, but my family were well aware that he does it. And it's because of the people who he's around. And me and him, we live two different lifestyles. The people who I associate with and the people who he associates with are starkly different.
If your family is well aware that a 14-year-old son of theirs is doing bad stuff, I don't know, maybe you don't, they don't know specifics. Don't they want to go out and tie him to the radiator and say, you're not going out because I want you to have a life when you get older?
Oh, of course. My family are very much so concerned, but we don't know what happens after he leaves school.
Right.
We don't know what happens on his way to school.
Right, but we also had conversations when you came in for the pre-interview, and stop me if I'm wrong, I could be wrong, but from what I remember, your mom was a little bit of an absentee mom, or no?
Yeah, and I mean, and there's certain variables that lend itself. For instance, I was raised by my grandparents. When my grandfather died, you know, that's a large portion of support that is now absent. And that can have psychological effects on people.
Right.
You know, we are humans. We are social beings. We need support, especially at that age. So when you detract certain things, especially at a young age, you're very open to suggestion, very susceptible, and very susceptible to the wrong suggestion. Me, I had a long history of support throughout my life to keep me on the right track.
What do you say to your brother, 14 years old? Do you sit him aside and say, what are you doing, asshole?
I try, of course. Of
and
course
what does
I
he
want
say?
to.
Is it a conflict between you guys?
Yes, there's conflict between him and my entire family.
Right.
Because he wants money. And I see that every day. He talks about it. Nana, I want to support you. I want to support this household.
Right.
You know, because when my grandfather isn't there, he thinks of himself as the man of the house now.
Right.
I want to take care of you. And doing drugs or this new thing called scamming, you know.
What's scamming?
It's basically like you buy stuff and then like you sell it. But yet you may go.
Why is that illegal? You buy something on eBay and you turn around and sell it.
It's different because you may go through the dark net and you may like get credit cards and stuff like that. And
so on some level, you're kind of describing a picture for your brother as Jimmy was when he was a young man.
Didn't start at 14, but see what she said was 100% right. It's the support that she had around her. And that's the difference. That's why she's doing well. She's wise. You're wise beyond your years, young lady. You are.
That's why I have her here.
Very smart.
You're 19. What do you think shaped your vision? You have the wherewithal, the capacity to sort of, I mean, you're in school, political science major, you're trying to get into production, so you're doing stuff at 19 where most kids, or I would imagine a lot of kids, at least when I grew up, 19, they weren't really doing as much. And on the flip side, they might have not been even too much tuned into school and their future. But you are.
People tend to work in opposites. So if you're poor, you value being, you know, living a different lifestyle. So with me, you know, I grew up poor. I still am poor. Right. You know, but I don't want to be like that.
You don't want to take the quick road either.
I mean, because it's...
Have you thought about it?
Yeah, I mean, of course.
And what would that entail?
Really easy.
Selling drugs or doing what your brother's doing?
I mean, yeah, I could have done that. Like, and that's the thing.
You could have sold drugs?
Of course. I could have. There's so many statistics I could have been because I lived in
Jimmy,
the
you
same...
think that Ivory would have made a good drug dealer? I mean, but she doesn't look the part.
That's exactly it.
But see, I lived in the same exact environment, so I could have ended up just like my brother, just like everyone else who I lived around. Right. But because my mom lived a certain lifestyle, my grandma said, you're the first, we're going to make sure that you don't end up like this.
There's there's different things in this part that she just told about.
When you were a young kid, did you actually feel like you might have gone in a different direction?
I did go in a different direction.
Because you strike me as a guy, just by looking at you, I don't know you well, but you seem like a soft soul. You don't have too much of the in you.
No, well, that's cool because I like
when
that.
When you were young, it might have been a little different, but I'm just saying, though, if I can gauge anything from you, because I don't know you.
No, I used to fight a lot.
You used to fight a lot?
Yeah, I fought a lot.
Right.
That's one thing. I'll never back down on a fight.
Right.
That's one thing. Let's get that straight.
Sure.
Everyone that knows me, because I was always picked on.
Right.
when I was
So
younger.
by default, you had to learn. It was
Yeah,
just,
I had to
again,
learn.
like Jimmy says, survival, right? What are you making that face, Jimmy?
Survival, no,
Yeah.
survival.
Yeah,
You
it
do
was.
what you got to do.
Because
Right.
after a while, you know, my older brother was like, Pat,
Right.
I'm not going to defend you every time.
Right.
So you have to pick this up and do what you have to do, and
Right.
that's what happened. So I used to get slapped in class. I used to get punched.
Because you were a little kid.
I
Were
was
you a
a,
little kid
yeah,
when
I
you
was
were-
a young dude, gullible, happy.
When you
I-
were young, were you like a petite kid? I was a
Yeah,
petite
yeah,
kid.
yeah. I was born small. I was born real small.
Right.
I was always one of the shortest person in class.
Right.
Always. And you know, the big guys always wanted to pick on the small guy. And I ended that when I got to elementary school. There was a time when I was like, you know, I had enough, and then, you know, I fought a couple of dudes, and I got the respect. And then it went carried on till high school. I was fighting. It's crazy because just look at the dynamics of this. I'm a black young kid. I had to fight white dudes
Right.
because I moved into a white neighborhood. Then I had to fight black kids, African Americans, because they didn't understand me as a Haitian. I was fighting both dynamics, you know. I was fighting everyone. It's crazy. I was like, yo, what's going on? I have to fight you. Because some of the black kids was like, you're not really black.
What a fucking conundrum to be.
Yeah, it was
Fucking
crazy.
pain in the ass.
You know,
Can you-
getting back to Ivory's brother's situation, we got a couple of failures going on here. We got parenting failure, we got counseling failure from school, and it's a matter of the ship can be righted before it gets too far turned over.
Better hurry up.
How far
You
to
know-
this point of no return?
Well, that's the point. Well, let me get back to the counseling.
in your
thing.
estimation, because you must have seen a lot of wayward kids.
Well, you know, he's at 14. You know, 14, all of a sudden he's running around like he's 17 and a half. That's one thing.
Do you have a father figure at the house?
No.
You see,
just-
that's what the problem
Yeah.
is. You see, the young man doesn't have a father figure. I bet you if the father was home.
I didn't really have too much of a father figure either.
Well,
I mean,
it
I
helps.
did.
Different
My father was
communities,
around, but he
Tommy.
wasn't as present.
Yeah, yeah.
Your brother Junior is older than you, right? Did he?
13 months.
Oh, not too much older, right? No influence there.
We were
Equal?
separated most of our lives
Why?
because of me. I kept leaving.
Oh, you kept leaving, right?
Yeah, I
yeah,
kept
but when you were
leaving.
young kids, 5, 6, 10, 12.
He was my father's right-hand man, not
Right.
me.
That bother you?
Of course.
It bothered you. You and your brother don't talk now.
That's
and,
right.
And basically, as a result of your father, I think, from what
I
I
don't
know.
consider him he's a blood brother, but I don't consider him a brother.
Right. So, from what I know about your family, it seems like the reason why everybody is splintered off is a direct result of what your father did. Is that fair to say?
What was the question?
Your father was a very big guy in that world.
An important,
Right.
influential
And
man,
your dad was Jimmy Napoli. And
known as Jimmy Knapp.
so Tony's dad was Jimmy Knapp. And basically, he ran, which I give a lot of credit for, because I've seen the reports in the New York Times back in the 60s. He ran a gambling racket just in the New York City area, and
40
maybe
years.
veered into Westchester a bit.
Right, Miami Beach.
No, oh
also,
yeah, but I'm
out-
just
out
saying.
of New York.
Yeah, but the bulk of it was
Yeah,
here,
East
right?
Coast, East
right.
Coast
And the New
gambling.
York Times had reported that back in the
He
60s,
was one of the richest men in the world.
it was estimated that he was making 150 to 250 million dollars a year. That's
Exactly.
what, $1 billion bucks today?
staggering.
Yeah.
That's
Staggering
sick
number.
money,
More than
right?
that.
Absolutely.
He
More
had
than that.
1,000 employees,
Right.
number runners.
Was that your way of kind of?
Madison Community College.
Well, wait a minute. If you're gonna, I'm trying to do this where we're
I
both
want to
not
get in
talking.
my college resume.
Okay. Is that your way of, in essence, maybe rebelling because your older brother was your father's right-hand man? You say, fuck this, I'm going to go off on my own, do my own thing.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Right. Jimmy,
You
did
don't
you?
let me finish.
I thought you were. I'm sorry.
No,
Forgive
I
me.
ain't finished. No.
Forgive me.
You're very impolite. Well,
Well, I'm
anyway.
trying to keep it the pacing
So,
of the
now I forgot
conversation.
what I was going to say.
Jimmy, do you ever feel? You ever feel envious of your brother on some level because he was able? He was able to kick it
Envious isn't the
together.
right word.
Jealous. Jealous isn't the right word.
I don't think that's the right word either. Just it's what I think I could have done with my life.
Right.
More so that than anything doing with him.
Right. Do you
It
feel?
could be any lawyer, it could be any cop, it could be anyone who's doing good with their lives, and I think I missed my boat.
Is there a touch of inferiority with your brother? Do you feel inferior to him on some level?
No, I argue with him all the time.
And what do you say to him?
He's an asshole.
Right. But you argue with him, but does he turn around and say, listen, asshole, I did the right thing? And
No,
We
never
don't-
like
no,
that.
No. So that never comes up in
It's
the
never done
conversation.
where it's never belittling or anything like that. Like I can get in any conversation with him about it. I can hold my own with him, except law.
You're an independent thinker. You don't want to be a clone of somebody
Yeah.
else in the family. You know, the fact that you can stand alone and then say something and then back it up.
Jimmy, how do you think somebody would react? And I mean, you must have crossed some lines in your life, and you've really fucked people over on some level.
I
Whether
never fucked anyone over.
beatings,
If I ever did, it was coming to him.
and why? Because they ripped you off.
No, I never got ripped off.
So how,
Not
how do you
really.
justify coming to him?
It's doing the wrong thing when I was
What's
out.
the wrong
if I
thing?
was out, let's say I was working in a club,
Yeah.
and they said something to the manager of the club. You got to remember, I was security too.
Right.
So if I thought they did something wrong to the guy's wife or something like that,
Right.
but I never did. I never did anything wrong as far as taking my business too far or doing anything that I didn't think was appropriate or just to do something to prove something. And that's not who I am.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not about that.
So you took a position in a club so you could push the drugs in there.
Correct.
Just like P.J. Clark's, their maitre d's used to push
Of
the
course,
drugs in the
there's
back.
money.
We don't want to.
Listen,
We don't
you-
want to incriminate
Yeah.
PJ.
No,
Have you spent time at PJ Clark's? A big cop hangout.
I wrecked
you-
that whole joint once in P.J. Clark's. I did, yeah.
With the 103rd Avenue.
Yeah.
The 103rd Avenue.
Yeah.
How does he get away with wrecking the whole joint? When meanwhile, it's a cop hangout.
Well, there goes. We're going back.
Front bar, you
We're
probably
going
know
back.
about it. I wrecked the whole joint there. And my father had to go to the sit down with the Irish mob that lived upstairs. I don't know.
Does that sound vaguely? Does that sound vaguely familiar
Back
to you?
then, it's like it stayed in house.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Stayed in house.
Because the guy asked me for shit. What
Right.
the hell is he talking about? The bartender, John, I knew him. He said he wants to know if you got any coke. I said, tell him to meet me in the men's room. And the urinal, 4 feet high, that the men piss in. I put him in there.
How dare you say pissing in front of Ivory?
I'm sorry, I urinate. And I came out and I said, now give me a martini. And I defended my father and his reputation by doing what I did. But my father went there and gave them $5,000 to repair the bar and everything. If you ever heard about P.J. Clark's being renovated, it's because of me.
Okay.
And I went around the corner to Heartlands.
He wears it like a badge of honor on some
I
level.
went around the corner to Heartlands where Mike Cerati was playing piano, and I relaxed in there most of the night, and everybody's coming over kissing me. You did some job, you did some job.
I invited Patrick on because he said that we had an interesting conversation. You said you had some problems with stop and frisk.
Yes.
Before we go on, the cop that hassled you, it wasn't Bill, was it? No, right? Okay, just
Nah,
check.
from what I see,
From what you remember,
Bill is
it
a nice
might have
guy.
been Bill.
No. It wasn't Bill. It wasn't Bill. He's one of those cops that you want other cops to emulate.
I did it. You got an explanation why you were being stopped. There was something that went on. It came over as a radio description. Oddly enough, you're wearing a Kango hat, Giselle glasses, the same jacket that's on the description.
Yeah.
And that's why, so you know what? You're not that person, but I got to ask you for your information. You voluntarily want to give it to me, take your name and your address, and then you can go on your way. Is that all right by you? Yes, officer. Terrific.
What if he doesn't?
If he doesn't, he can refuse and walk away. The whole idea with stop and frisk is, am I infringing on your right to move of your free will?
De Blasio kind of put an end to it, right?
They put it on the profile sheet that the officers have to put down every month how many stop and frisk reports they did. Well, you know what? It varies. You can't make it a productivity thing. Supposedly, as crime is coming down, that means there should be less encounters with supposedly bad guys on the street, because there aren't any bad guys on the street.
Jimmy, you're for it, right? You said right? In other words,
I think it could be useful, but again, I don't know it the way Bill does. Obviously, Patrick has, from what I'm hearing, firsthand knowledge of it, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
I find the irony that you would be for it, considering the line of work that you were in.
Yeah, but
There's no but. Don't you find that ironic?
No.
Because you would have been a subject. You would have been
That's
a victim.
fine.
You would have been a victim of it.
Okay.
And you would have been caught.
Okay. Then I would have gotten caught.
Right.
And rightly so.
Don't you find that ironic that the fact that
But
you're...
don't you think it would have been better than I got caught?
I agree with what you're saying, but it's the irony of the fact that a drug dealer is for stop and frisk.
If something I see it as beneficial, right? I just do, and I'm sorry what happened to you, Patch. I don't know what happened to
Well,
you. I didn't
we
hear your
haven't
story.
gotten to him yet,
Right, that's
but-
what I'm saying. So I don't know what happened to you.
Right.
Right, but
But
the simple point that I'm trying to make is that...
if it saves a life,
Yeah.
if it saves a life, somehow, if 1 out of 100 save a life, instead of just maybe ruining your day, but in the long run saving a kid's life somewhere down the line, then I'm for it. That's all I'm saying. That's it. I mean, that's all.
A lot of times you talk about the racial aspect of it, stop and frisk being racialized. If you think that well, first of all, cops are disproportionately more in these African American, high populated areas than they are in these white suburbias. So automatically, the amount of black and brown and just minorities being stopped and frisked is automatically going to be higher.
Right.
So I think that's one of the problems. Also, a lot of people don't know their rights when they are in the presence of a police officer. So the reaction that they may have towards an officer may be starkly different than what it should be, because you don't know if you can do this, you don't know if you can do that. It's very intimidating to be in the presence of an officer. So there's many variables at play here. Also, and then not only that, but you have things like implicit racism. They may be targeting someone because they have a hoodie on, or, you know.
Well, that's the problem. See, you mentioned the fact that many people don't know their rights. And just for the record, I'm not necessarily against stop and frisk. I think that it's, you know, if somebody looks like they're doing something that's not right, you should stop them and see what they're doing, right? But to your point, I'm not even so concerned about not knowing your rights, because if I'm concerned about the cops that abuse, or like Cyrus said, he said it's not abused, it's been abusive, or is it the other way around? I can't remember. I know, I asked him, I said, do you think it's an abusive method? And he goes, he doesn't think it's an abusive method. He seems to think that it's been abused.
I think that's what he said.
That's what he said, right. So to your point, if a cop is a bad cop, right, and I have something here I want to discuss, which just shows in New Jersey, which is our next door neighbor, systemic bad. I mean, just fucked up shit's going on in Jersey, according to this report from USA Today. It doesn't matter if you know your rights or not, because they're going to trample on it anyway.
Yeah.
Right? So, Patrick, tell us your story, because we had a discussion. You basically said that when you were what, in your teens?
Yeah, through my
20s, you were hassled a lot, right?
A lot. I would be stopped, because I know it became a racial profiling thing.
Right.
That was definite. There's no one here that could tell me any other. I know that's for a fact.
Right.
If you have a black kid walking down the street and you have another white kid walking down the street, the cop's going to go to the black kid.
Right.
It doesn't matter what happened. They could be anything going on. They going straight to the black kid.
Bill, what are your thoughts on that?
No, it's
There's that tell. Do you see the
No,
tell?
I saw the tell.
You saw the tell.
I saw it. I did. I caught it. I just caught it when you did.
It goes back to the comment. It's right. I used to walk up to guys and say, "Hey guys, I'm Marvin Gaye. What's going on?" And they was like, "Oh, what's up, officer?" It's like nothing. You tell me. You know, what's everything good? What do you see? This and that. And then it's a matter of you get that third friend that's saying all of a sudden he's starting to do he's doing the foot shuffle, because next thing you know he's taking the decks of heroin and he's kicking them underneath the fruit stand. All right. And
Right, but in Patrick's defense, we're not really discussing that.
Okay, but
yeah.
No, you're talking about a whole different thing.
yeah, but
And I know,
mean,
I
there's
know it must be
situations.
tough for you, because there might be some friends of yours that are watching the show, right? And,
Sure.
And they're going to say, "Hey, what the fuck? What are you doing, Bill? What are you saying?"
it's just a matter of, you know what?
You're just being honest, you're being truthful.
Straight shooter. That's the way he worked, and you know what? Never flaked the guy. Never put anything on the guy. This and that.
That's why I love
Bill
you.
G. But your point is, yeah. Do you get profiled? Unfortunately, you do, because
Yes.
there are guys out there just thinking that they're Superman. You know what? There's another black guy out in the street, and you know what? He's up to no good.
Well, that's not
Unfortunately-
necessarily Superman. That's racism.
Yeah.
Let's call it what it is. It's
And I
racism.
apologize for that because that's
Well, it works the other way too,
but there are guys
right?
that don't understand what it's all about either.
Right,
They
right,
just
right.
know that they have to do stop and frisk reports and check that box off at the end of the month that every day they stopped at least 3 guys and ask them, why'd you stop that guy? You know what, boss? Because I gotta put the reports in.
Those are the guys I encountered a lot of them. You know, they were out there just to make the quota, and they were probably racist because the way they spoke to me.
Right.
It was definitely not called for. And
Well, tell us a story.
Yeah,
Tell-
okay,
and
just
just
one
be
incident.
concise and do bullet points
this
through
one
the story.
incident, I was walking home. It might have been a mile away from my house, going to my house. I stopped at my store that was maybe 600 feet away from my house.
Right.
Maybe a little more than that. But I stopped off at the store to buy a sandwich on my way home. It was a bagel store that was open 24 hours.
Listen, nobody cares about the bagel store. Just
Yeah,
you had
yeah.
a sandwich,
I
you're
just gotta
walking
get-
down the
yeah.
block with the sandwich. The sandwich is the key part of the story. Tell
There
us
you
the
go.
story. Concise.
So, I didn't know there were detectives following me throughout this whole time. So they rolled up on me. Nobody showed their badges. Nothing. They just came. It was just 4 big dudes.
Jerry, you getting a 3-shot? Because Bill has some interesting smiles on his face as we're going through this.
Patrick's walking down the street holding the key.
Yeah. So exactly. They just rushed me, and they didn't grab me. They just said, "Where you coming from?" And I was like, "What do you mean where I'm coming from? Came from the store." What,
Well,
what?
let's stop there. Number one, right, Bill? They don't have to ask anybody where they're going, right? In other words, there's nothing that Patrick is giving off.
Unfortunately, there's no danger of life and limb to why he's being grabbed.
Yeah.
That's the point.
Right,
But
okay.
they're looking at where the neighborhood, possibly the bodega, the grocery store is involved in the drug business, and you're a runner, and you're running out a half a brick of cocaine.
No.
You know.
Well, in his case, it was a sandwich. It wasn't a half a brick.
But that's it. But the wrapping, the way it
Oh,
gives
so
the
you're
appearance-
saying you're kind of justifying it on some level
No,
because
I'm
they saw
trying
the
to get
sandwich.
into the mindset, saying, you know
Well-
what, he's holding a gun. There's a gun wrapped up in a package, or there's a package of heroin.
They knew you, right? In other words, you were no. What I'm saying is they didn't know you personally, but you were a familiar face in the neighborhood, were you not, or no?
I don't know, because I'd never seen them before in my life.
Oh, okay, so it was the first
You
time.
just
Okay.
walk in and that's it.
Yeah, actually, they weren't from the precinct in my neighborhood. They were from a different precinct because where I was walking from, I probably went through their precinct. That's
Right.
probably what happened.
Well, you mentioned an interesting point. So Patrick has a bag, and there's a sandwich in it, and automatically they might think, hey, he's got a brick in there of drugs. Let's stop him. Let's see what's
there's
going on.
complaint-
Okay, so the
there's-
question is, does that happen on Park Avenue if a guy carries a bag with a sandwich?
No.
That's racism. Race stereotypes, that's a form of racism.
Right.
You're in a neighborhood, you're like, okay, black guy, all right, I already know something's probably gonna be a little off. Neighborhood, oh,
Right.
this is sketchy neighborhood. Oh, this looks like so-and-so. Like how
Right.
you said, they wouldn't do that if they were on Park Avenue. That's the whole power struggle.
Right.
Black versus
It
white.
goes back to
have and have nots.
It goes back to me being up in, say, Washington Heights, younger. It's a white guy from Jersey going to cop. I'd be stopped.
Oh, come on, Bill. I mean, you're reaching far, aren't
No,
you?
I'm just saying back in the day.
Back in the day,
Or
what, in the 1920s? When?
No, back in the day, being in my 30s, say, or in Brooklyn, and saying there's a guy from Long Island coming into cop.
Right.
That's same deal. I'm getting stopped by the same police.
That's what I was just going to
Well,
say.
Tony, you with the crooked hat, did you experience this when you were a young boy or no?
The cop in the neighborhood knew Jimmy Knott.
Right.
They knew who I was.
Right.
And most of the time they would slap me on the back with a love tap.
Right.
Not to, and they say, please let the others see it and move on.
Okay, that's
But they would say to me, tell the old man I said hello.
so you get a love tap. Let's continue with Patrick's story and see what he got. Did you get a love tap, Patrick? No love tap for Patrick.
Yeah, if it was a love tap, then he loved me
You
a
would
lot.
have been.
Patrick got the element of surprise.
He said if it was a love tap, they loved him quite a bit.
Yeah, there's love taps too that make it look good.
So,
But Patrick, I have a son-in-law who's a sergeant at one police plaza.
Yeah.
He's got 24 years on the job.
Right.
And he tells me stories, and he says to me, sometimes a person, he didn't say a color skin or anything, a person is stopped because the cop in the area got a call from the precinct to look for so-and-so description of so.
Yeah.
So you look like so-and-so description. You could be black, white, whatever the description is.
But-
so they stop you because of that, because the cop is on the alert.
I fit the description all the time.
Real quick,
all the
did you
time.
did you
A black man?
Tony,
All
hold
the
on one
time.
second. Did you have the beard when back then?
No. I
So
had
you were a
small-
clean-shaven
a
man.
little cleaner than this.
How did you dress? Did you dress the thug life? Were your pants down to your
I dress
knees?
normal. I don't. It's Doug life
Ivory,
to me.
you shaking your head. Am I
It's-
not allowed to say that as a white guy?
Just consider you.
No, wait a minute. No,
Okay.
no, let's not continue. You kind of shook your head like, is that wrong to say? I want to know.
Well, I mean, it's like, what is the thug style, you know? Like,
Look, you can differentiate between what Patrick dresses and some other guys on the street. They look a little different, don't they? Can't we say that? I mean, that's fair game to say,
Throw
right?
it all out there now. Now he's got that terrorist thing going
Right.
on.
Patrick, do you agree with what
I went there. Yeah, throw it out there.
Well, Patrick, do you agree with what I'm saying? In other words, sometimes you could spot some guys, and it's not a black thing, Ivory. It could be a white trash thing, right? Could be anything, right?
Well,
why do you make the hold on, Ivory? Why do you
no,
make that face?
because again, a black person can be wearing a hoodie and just wearing a regular pair of slacks.
Yeah.
And they're thought to be a thug.
Right.
But they're not.
Right.
I know a lot of people who dress a certain way just because it's a fad.
Yes.
But if it's just a little bit on the negative side,
Right.
now you're being profiled.
And
Now
you know
you're
what?
being thought to be something that you're not. And that's the problem that I have with it.
Point taken. It's an excellent point. It really is. It's a great point. And I agree with you. I'll meet you halfway. You're right. However, on the flip side, can't you not say that it could be not necessarily what they're wearing. It could be an energy, because I really go on energy when I meet people. I hardly know Patrick, but we had the conversation, and I can tell that, I mean, there's some white people where you work in the store there, they got attitudes big time. There's an energy that I don't like about them. And with you, I don't get that energy. I get like a really calm, good guy. Right. I mean, I didn't know you 20, 30 years ago. Might have been a different story.
Right.
But will you meet me, both of you meet me halfway, that there is some validity to what I'm saying as far as energy, how somebody dresses? I mean, you see a guy and he's got the brass knuckles or whatever. There's no.
Okay, I mean, but that's.
In other words, up to a point.
different.
In other words, you're kind of laughing at it in the sense that I'm the white guy and I'm kind of being a little bit too.
No,
the
it
brass
has,
knuckles
it
is
has
overdoing
nothing to do with that. I mean, like, it's just that, in my opinion, you have to take people by their actions.
Right.
Because, as we all know, looks can be deceiving. They always say, don't judge a book by its cover. How many people will cross the street because they see a big black man walking down the street and they have the energy that he's threatening?
Oh. You make a very good point. Bill, Ivory says you got to judge people by their actions. And take it easy with the lovemaking noises there.
And judging, and that's exactly.
We're making the lovemaking noises a central theme to the show.
And that's exactly getting back with the whole idea of stop and frisk and question should be all about. What are their actions? They have to have actions that would elicit some type of criminal activity or what is about to be criminal activity based on the fact that they got bulges in their pocket. They keep looking around. They keep adjusting it. That's telltale signs the guy's carrying a piece. Okay?
Right.
But up to that point, it's just a common law right of inquiry if you want, or just watch their actions. Judge them by their actions. What are their actions?
Your actions were, you were just walking home.
No, I'm just walking down the street. I'm going home now. I'm going to go home and have a sandwich.
Right.
And I told that to eventually I knew who they were, even before they showed me the badge.
Right.
Because I figured it out. I was like, okay, these four white boys.
You must have been a little bit intimidated on
No,
some
I
level.
was intimidated because I didn't know who they were at first. I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah, but when you found out they were cops, were you even more intimidated?
Yeah, I was, because I was by myself. And then my brother came out the house.
Right.
It was down the street from my house. And my brother came out the house, and then he saw me being accosted by these officers.
Right.
He just ran over and
Right.
was like, yo, Pat, what's going on?
Right.
So immediately they pushed him. They just shoved them to the side. They were like, "Get out of here. This is not your business."
Right.
And then the other officer that did
Well,
that.
hold on. Did he say, "Hey, this is my brother. What's
Yeah,
going on?"
of course. He said, "That's my brother. What are you doing?" That's the first thing he said.
Right.
Just the first thing I want to ask you, what were your actions as far as carrying that sandwich? Was you carried it as in the bag? Because that has a lot to that
No,
plays
no.
into it.
Well,
I was
you gotta
carrying it the
everybody
way
make a face
a
on
normal
your
human being would carry
seriously,
it.
no,
No, I was
You're
carrying
hearing
it.
it from a cop.
I'm carrying it the way anyone would carry it in the bag.
In the bag. It's not
Yeah.
like you're carrying it. Going
No.
Like,
That had no reason. That's being suspicious.
Okay, no, all right, that's
Well, no, you know, in
Because
Bill's
it leads
defense,
up-
I mean, he's asking
it
what a
leads-
cop
yeah,
would
then it
ask
leads up
normally.
to that.
Yeah, I
Right.
know. Trust me, I know.
Right.
But
In other words,
the
you could
times
see
when
both sides.
I could see both. I can. This okay. If someone is acting suspicious because they did something wrong,
You get
and
it.
you guys pick up on it, yeah, that's cool. I'm cool with that. But me, when I got stopped, the 5 times that I got stopped, I wasn't doing anything wrong. It was just because of my skin color, and I knew that. Because when I'm walking down the street these days, even till this day, the way you describe me as being I'm a gregarious person. I love to talk to anyone. I would love to help anyone out.
Sure.
It doesn't matter who it is.
Right.
Race, color, creed, ethnicity, it doesn't matter. But when I see white ladies give me that look like, oh shit, it's a black dude, let me clench on my purse. This happens to me all the time.
What leads them to think that way?
Because of
black.
the stereotyping, it's a opposite of the mental slavery thing. Because we're messed up from it too, but also white people are messed up from it at the same time.
Right.
Because white people don't understand that not everybody's the same.
Can you imagine living in a neighborhood where, on top of that, he doesn't live in such a great area to begin with, all right? So you have to contend with all the bad elements of the neighborhood, getting robbed, whatever it might be, right? Just stray bullets flying in the air, whatever it might be. And on top of that, you got to worry about the guys that are there to protect you as well.
Yeah.
That's
But
an
did you hear
insane
what you
amount of
just said?
that's an insane amount of pressure to live with day in and day out.
But did you hear what you just said?
Yeah, on the
What?
defense
What did
for
I
the
just
cops,
say?
they
You
have
just
to.
said
What
that there's a
leads-
lot of bullets flying
Yeah,
all
yeah.
over the place.
Right.
So if you're living or you're working in that environment, and
Right.
Bill would know 1,000 times better than me, if you're living and working in that environment and there's cops and there's bullets being shot and guns going off and crime and this and that, then I kind of get it. You're not living in Old Brookville where the houses are $5 million and up.
You bring up a good point, and keeping in nature with the show, because there's nuances in life, right? There's no one way or the other, right? So you have to look at both sides. So, Bill, is that a valid point? In other words, so Jimmy says that there's bullets flying in the air, and as a result, the cops are trying to figure out who's shooting and who's not. So they got to stop poor Patrick because you got a sandwich in the bag.
It's getting to know who's in the precincts. That's why this whole neighborhood community officer program that they have in place. It's somebody just we open up the textbook. It's kind of like time, we learned it as time not spent on patrol. You got out, you knew who was who. It was nice to get out of the car and walk around. And Jimmy's thing about bullets flying all over the place. That's like a metaphor because it's good for good and bad. There's bad guys shooting at one another.
Right.
And then all of a sudden now the cops got to intervene, like for those innocent people that have to live there. And then they're the cops chasing the bad guys, and then innocent collateral damage, people get hurt. So it's a matter of cops want to know who the players are.
Yeah.
If you had, and these guys sound like they were borough guys or not precinct guys.
You touched it. I think it's important for the police department to school and educate the officers how to deal with, if they going into a black neighborhood, if you're a white cop, or you're going into a black neighborhood, you have to learn how to deal with these. It's a different way.
Well,
you can't. They're coming from Long
Why do you
Island.
have to be a white cop? So you're saying all black cops
No,
come
even
from
a black cop
neighborhoods?
that
No, it could be black and white.
I
It
agree.
could be
They
black or
just have
white.
to
I'm
learn
going by
how
what
to
he
deal.
said.
It
Right.
could be black cops that never lived in the ghetto, that never lived in
Right,
these type
so
of urban
something,
areas.
just stop blaming everything on
No,
white.
no, I'm not
This is
blaming
psychology.
You know what I'm saying?
It's you know what? It's unfortunate.
Hold on. Get a camera on Jimmy. What did you say?
I said, stop blaming everything on Whitey. It just is what it is. I mean, it doesn't have to be a white cop. It could be a black cop stopping a black. I mean, come on, man.
It's just more pervasive
Well, maybe you just notice it more.
No, it is.
No.
It
Maybe
is.
you notice it
No,
more.
it is. It is. It is. We can't go and say I notice it, and a lot of people else notice it.
In a high crime area, whatever
it's
color skin you
stereotypes.
are.
Because
Well, wait a
what
minute. How
makes
do we
a
know
high-
it's a high crime area? And just because it's a ghetto and it's an impoverished, it's a low,
No, from police reports.
low rent area.
From police reports, it's a high crime area.
know where the crime
robberies,
is.
bodegas, robberies.
Yeah, I understand.
So
what,
then you
what-
put stop and frisk there, but that would be called profiling.
Are you for profiling or not?
No,
That's a
I'm not.
tough question for you because here's the deal. I'm going to flip it around.
Mm-hmm.
Should we be profiling people from the Middle East?
No, we shouldn't.
We shouldn't. Jimmy?
Should be profiling everyone. Me
Exactly.
too. Here's my point. I mean, you have kids?
No.
Okay. If you did,
Yeah.
if you had a 10-year-old son that had to walk to school,
Right.
and there's guys hanging out in the corner, and you know that there's shootings going on in that neighborhood, would you want profiling then?
It's a tough one. It's not profiling. It's I would want
Just asking
justice.
you.
I
You
would
see, it's
want
easy to
justice.
look at it through one's
I
eyes
understand,
and not
and
look at it
here's the
through
deal.
through
I'm
the-
generally,
through-
I'm not for profiling. In other words, because then we have to define what profiling
Yeah,
is.
yeah.
Because here's the deal. Because I know what you're going to say. I'm against profiling because we can't. In other words, if we profile everybody, then yes, let's profile.
Yeah.
Profiling then becomes good policing, right, Bill?
Exactly.
Right. What I see sometimes, just by the reports I read, is that there's more profiling in Harlem and in black areas than there would be per se on Park Avenue. And maybe the cop might argue, maybe the police force might argue that we need profiling at the more fucked up areas in Park
Well, then
Avenue
that makes
because the
sense,
rich are not
Tommy,
going to
because
go out and
they're
mug
not shooting
you.
guns in Park Avenue. I mean, come on,
right,
man.
Yeah, so no, but I don't disagree with you. In other words, what I'm trying to say is that there's
If it saves
nuances
a
that we
life,
have to deal with.
If it saves a life, if it saves one life, whether black, white, Spanish, I don't care. I know what it's like, all right, to death. I understand death. If it saves a life, isn't it worth it? Like, at what point do you say, you know what, that guy's life isn't worth it, and if he gets shot and he dies, it's okay, because I didn't have to check that guy for a gun. My point is this, it's not about color. You want to see it color. If I get pulled over, right, if I get pulled over, pull me over.
Right.
I don't care if you pull me over. If I got something to hide, then I'm fucked, and I deserve to be fucked.
Yeah, but Jimmy,
if I'm not, and it's somehow you pull the next guy over that has the gun or has the knife or is about to do something bad, and it saves his life or her life or his life, then isn't it worth it?
I can't wrap myself around the fact that you think, as a drug dealer, when you're in your 20s and 30s, you would be for stop and frisk. So basically, what you're asking is, hold on. What you're asking is, catch me.
That's right.
I got drugs in my pocket.
That's-
Why would you
wanna
want to
know
be
why? I'll tell
caught? You didn't
why.
like when you were pinching and went up the river
let me
for a
tell-
year.
dude, let me tell you. I'd rather have gotten caught than not have gotten caught. Because if I gotten caught when I was younger, it might have changed my life.
Yeah,
Right?
you might have been in jail for
Oh,
20.
that-
You might have been in prison for 25
right,
years.
Or maybe I just would have did the
Right, so
time
tell
I
me
did
you
and I
would have
came
won.
out.
So what you're saying to me is it would have been worth it for you to go to prison for 25 years?
No, I'm not saying 25, but let's say I did the
Well,
time.
you
I-
could have if you had, according to Bill.
No. I'm saying if I got caught with, but let's say I just got busted the way I got busted.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
And now let's say I got busted 10 years earlier when I was 21.
Right.
And my life would have changed at 21 instead of 35.
Right.
So I'd be on a whole different road.
If you
that I
served
would have gone
25
down.
years in prison, you would be a very different person
You
than
keep
you are
saying
right now.
25, Thomas.
It could have been. That's
It
what I'm
could have
saying.
been, but
could
it
have
wasn't. I didn't go away for 25 years. So you can't go by that.
All right, Tony, go ahead first, and then Ivory. Go ahead. Well, actually, ladies first. Ivory, go ahead.
Okay.
To that point, there's many people who go to jail, and when they come out, when you have a criminal record, one, you can't get government assistance.
Right.
So there's a thing called recidivism, is when you commit a crime, are out, have to commit another crime, go back in.
So you're
Start
talking
to-
specifically blacks versus Jimmy, who is white, right? In other words,
Why
is
are you
there a
talking
difference?
about color?
Well,
What color?
I didn't even
Well,
say,
what
I didn't
color
say
is
anything
this?
about color.
I'm
What
asking.
color?
I'm asking if you're gearing. You're saying so you're generalizing.
I'm
You're not
generalizing,
putting color. Okay,
but
good.
so that is something that happens. Now, if we want to take it a step further and put it towards race, how there are many black people who are literally just discriminated against when it comes to the job process.
Right.
And if you slap on a criminal record, that makes your chances of getting a job even worse. If you can't get into housing, public housing, if you can't get food stamps, Section 8, all these different things, your opportunity to make it and make a decent living for yourself decreases tenfold.
Right.
Even from the beginning. And if you were committing crime in the beginning to survive, then what do you have now? You see what I mean?
Yeah, I see what you mean.
So, like, to be able to say that, oh, this is going to change my life when I get out, maybe it could do that to you, but for many people, that is just not the
Bullshit.
reality.
Right. Well, that's
Bullshit.
what she's agreeing with what
Bullshit.
I'm saying
Yeah,
is
but
that you would have
bullshit.
been.
I don't want to hear that at 21 I couldn't have changed my life instead of 35.
Well, wait a minute. Time out. You can't say.
I can't
wait,
say
hold
that
on, wait a
because
minute.
I'm white. That all of a sudden someone who's black.
No. Wait a minute.
I don't
Take,
say-
hold on. Wait. Time out. Take the black and white issue out of it. Hold on. Wait 1 second. Take the black and white issue out of it.
But she
you
said
can't. No.
black.
But you can't call bullshit on something you didn't know happened. In other words, you don't know what would be going on in your mind if you had to serve for 25 years and
But
how
you
you
keep
would have
saying
felt. Hold on.
25
Time out.
years, Thomas. If anyone does 25 years, dude.
I'm using a number. It could have been 15. It could have been 10.
I
It could
did
have
a
been
year.
20.
It's a year. Just stick
No.
with what I did.
No. What I'm saying is that if you got pinched for what we discussed before, if you had a couple, you said you had two.
Yeah, but that's a whole different deal, man.
I know, but what I'm
I'd be
saying.
in prison till I'm
I know,
45.
but the original conversation was, I'm calling bullshit on you because you're for stop and frisk and you're a drug dealer. And the thing is, you're basically saying, yes, stop me.
Right.
But you wouldn't have said stop me if you had a couple of
If I had
bricks.
that, then I
in the
deserve. If I got stopped, I got stopped.
Right,
Tommy,
but what I'm
you're
saying
right.
is you would have had a very different perspective. You wouldn't have said stop me.
If I got, am I going to say stop me? No, but if they caught me, they caught me, right?
Right,
I'm
but
still
what I'm
doing
saying
the
is you're
crime.
for
If you
stop and
catch me,
frisk.
you get catch. You get caught.
I get it. Tony, what were you
I know
add
what
to
you're
this?
saying.
Right.
I think what Jimmy is trying to say that when
Right.
he was younger,
Right.
he wouldn't have got 25 years, maybe probation or something. But however, most of the guys that went away, agreeable, Ivory, they come back worse because they made connections in there,
Right.
influencer, and they met guys in and out of the country, and they get involved and they get educated on the drug business, the scam artist business, and whatnot. Jimmy, when you were younger, you might have changed. If you got arrested, yes, you would have done probation only, maybe. But Ivy, yes, they do come back influential in the crime.
Before we move on, do you have any quick remarks to what Tony and Jimmy and what Ivory just
You
said?
know, unfortunately, if stop and frisk was used properly, the way I laid it out earlier, then it'd be the best thing. It'd be the policeman's friend, and the public would embrace it because they'd understand what was going on. It's an abuse of authority, for lack of better words.
So finish up the story with stop and frisk.
They approached me. They asked me where I was going. I told them I was going home. And I said I lived down the street. I pointed to my house. And my brother came out and was like, "What's going on?" In the same time, they were still searching me.
Right.
They didn't notify me. They didn't show no badge.
Right, but there was an escalation, you told me. So basically,
the
they came to
escalation
you.
came when my brother came on the scene.
Right, but
And
you
they-
escalated a little bit too as well.
Yeah, no, of course.
Right.
I was upset.
Right,
I didn't-
which is a key point because here's the deal.
Yeah.
I also maintain that if a cop stops you,
Yeah,
and,
but
and I know it must be hell living in that world where
Okay.
you have to worry about cops, but there are a lot of people. Well, what do you want? And why do I got to do this? And why do I got to do that? Right, you have to comply.
4-on-1, it serves you best to say, okay.
Right, but you as a cop, though, you understand why Patrick might be pissed off, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because they didn't tell me they were cops at first. Remember, they just came at me, so I was taken off guard.
Well, that's the number one. That's one wrong thing they did, right? You got to announce yourself. You got to show a badge, right?
Police don't move.
Right.
A police
Yeah,
officer.
hey, if they said that, I would have been okay, cool. But
Go
I
ahead, Patrick,
realized
finish
they were
up.
cops. Yeah. So my brother came out. They pushed him against the wall, and that's when I got a little more irate. I was
Right.
like, "Yo, what are you doing?" He didn't do anything. He just came out the house. He's probably looking after me. The one cop said, "Shut your mouth," and did something. He took my sandwich. Like you said, they went through my sandwich and they threw it down on the floor.
Right.
And I was just pissed off. I was just like, "Yo, listen, this is crazy. I was gonna eat that. At least you could have." I don't know.
Wait, hold on. You told me initially they just put their hands on it. You didn't tell me they threw it down on the floor.
No,
Are you
they-
embellishing this story?
No. They did. They threw it on the floor.
Right,
I
okay.
wasn't able to. Yeah, my brother would
Right.
tell if he was here. I just
Right.
gave you a
No,
synapse of-
I'm making a
yeah.
joke, but yeah, good.
So they threw it on the floor, and I got upset, and that's when it escalated to more than what what could have happened. I called them. I called one of the officers, something, I forgot what it was.
What was it, a bad occurrence? You
Yeah,
cursed him?
because he got at me first, and I said, "Oh, you're a coward, you know."
And
If
how old were you?
I was maybe 20-something years old.
Right. So
I s-
young kid, and you
Yeah,
still have the juice in you. You're a little fired up.
but the cop, there was one cop that was just not listening to nothing. He wanted to fight me.
Right.
So he was like, "Oh, you think you're bad?" I said, "Nah."
Real quick, let me stop you. A cop is not listening to anything. He just wanted to fight him. What does that tell you? He's
Abused
off
his
the rails,
authority.
right?
Yeah.
He just abused his authority. He had
Yeah.
a right to explain to 4 of them. You should have been the one cool head there prevailing. All right, everybody take it easy. What's your name? Patrick? Patrick, this is what we want to just find out. We got a complaint. We got this. We'll tell you what we're doing.
Okay, Patrick, finish up.
I told him, I said, "Listen, if you didn't have that gun, I would go with you right here in the street."
Okay, so now on the flip side,
No.
that's something that you don't tell a cop,
No,
right?
you don't. I know that, but I was so mad, I didn't care.
It depends on the individual. A guy like me would say, "All right, take it. Listen, let's take it easy, tough guy."
Sure.
Yeah, all right. You know.
And so then I called him a name. I said I called him a coward. I called him a pussy.
Right.
And
There you
then
go.
that's when he
Right.
slapped
Are you allowed
me.
to call a cop a
You
pussy?
can call him anything
Yeah, you
want.
can. He was a pussy. 'cause-
And that's the big thing that cops don't understand. You could be called anything you want. You could stand there, you know what? I'm having a good day. At the end of the day, I know I'm going home. You keep acting the way you're going to act, I don't think you're going to make it home.
Yeah.
And that's how we
I had freedom of
have
speech.
fun with it. Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
Yeah.
No problem with
And
So,
it.
if-
Patrick, finish up. Conclude.
So then he slapped me. So
Ooh.
then after he slapped me, that's when my brother was like, "Oh, what are you doing?" And then they grabbed him and he went in aggressive motion to come over to my way.
Right.
Then they grabbed him and they pushed him against the wall, and then they started going through the procedures of handcuffing him. That's when I got mad, and then I pushed the cop. I was like, "Yo, he didn't do anything, you know. It's all on me." And then that's when they grabbed me, and then the shouting match went about. I was calling him things, and he was calling me stuff.
You didn't get arrested, though.
Yeah, I got arrested.
Oh, that's right. Oh, you got pinched. That's right. You told me you got
Assault-
pinched,
assault
right?
second degree?
I forgot what it
Assault of a
was.
police officer?
No, well, here's
No,
the deal.
they left me out
They
of-
didn't arrest his brother.
Yeah, they arrested my brother.
Oh, they arrested your
They
brother,
arrested my-
but they let your
They
brother
let
out
my brother
early.
go- Yeah, they let my brother go in the pen. They let him go to his merry way. They said, "You know what? You're cool. It's your brother we want."
But wait a minute, time out. Let me
Before I
stop
got
you.
to the
Let me just
precinct.
stop you real quick. Why is your brother cool and you're not? Because your brother came out and kind of instigated in the beginning. So why would they find him cool
Yeah,
and
did
you
he get a
not?
summons for disorderly conduct?
Nah, he didn't get anything.
See, there are a couple of things going on here that are really out of the norm.
No,
like,
it became more personal.
not for you, but for what the
It
police
became
did.
personal with me and the
Yeah.
cop. The
Right.
cop that slapped me, it became a personal thing.
Right.
Because I chewed him out, and then he kept chewing me out, and then he punched me, and then
Right.
I said, "Oh, that's all you have?" And then he punched me
Oh,
again.
jeez.
So yeah, listen.
All right, so there was an escalation
Yeah, there
there.
was
So
an
at some
escalation.
point, though, your brother backed down and you
Yes,
kind of flared
yeah,
up.
because I'm older. My brother, I told him, "Benji, just relax, take
Right.
care of it," you know. And then, he listened to me, He was like, "All right, cool." I
Right.
was more aggressive, of
Right.
course, because I was a lot angrier. And then we were both in the back seat, and the cop was in the back seat with us.
Right.
And he was like, he said some stuff to me. I was like, "Well, this is the bullshit." He was like, if it was somebody else, you wouldn't have stopped me, And then he was like, "Fuck you, shut the fuck up. You going to the precinct. You're gonna you probably have drugs. I'm gonna make sure I'm gonna."
Strip search you,
Strip
the
search
whole-
you. I'm gonna go up
Did
your
they?
ass. Nah, they didn't do that.
Right.
But when he said that, I said, "I'll fuck you too," and
Have
then
you ever had a
they-
cop go up your ass from behind?
No.
No, okay.
No.
Because that's a very humiliating thing.
No,
I'm
when
not,
I got-
Audrey, I'm not
when
making
I-
a joke.
No,
I'm just,
I know.
I'm just, why you,
It's just a lot.
No, and then
why
when
you-
we were in a cop car, he slapped me again. And I said, "That's the last time you're going to slap me, you punk." And
Right.
then that's when he was like, "Oh, yeah, big man, wait till we get to the station." So we got to the station, and then I cursed everybody. No, I didn't curse everyone out. When I got there, I have a big mouth when I get angry.
Right.
I told the desk
desk
officer,
officer.
I said, your lieutenant, I forgot if he was a sergeant.
Yeah.
I said, he's the biggest asshole around. How do you guys work for this punk? He's a punk. He's arresting me because I didn't do nothing. If he didn't have these guys with him, I would fuck him up. That's what I was just going on.
All right, good. So we kind of conclude there, and basically the conclusion is that you went to court and they threw it out.
Yeah, they threw it out.
They threw it out,
But
right?
one question.
And rightfully so, Bill. They should have thrown it out.
Absolutely.
'Cause
Did
we got
you
8
have
minutes left.
alcohol in you or drugs?
Nah,
What
no
did
drugs,
you-
no drugs, nothing. I was
How dare you insinuate that he has alcohol?
No,
and
he's
drugs
talking
in
about
it?
if I was drinking.
To talk against 4 cops with guns.
Right. Well, he's pissed off. He lives in
there's
this
false
neighborhood. He gets
courage
hassled.
with me with alcohol. That gave me Superman.
Right.
So I
Jimmy-
was wondering what gave him so much courage to go against 4 cops.
He's pissed off.
I
And
would
he's
have
innocent.
thought worse. They would have given you a summons for disorderly conduct.
Yeah,
Right.
based on
Jimmy, you
that,
have anything
but-
to
No, they
add?
made me go through this. They made me
They
go
made you go
through
through the
the
system.
They made me go through the
You're
system.
with him,
That's
sure.
what they did.
Okay.
And then the desk officers probably gave the wink. Lose this guy's fucking paperwork.
Yeah, that's what they
Patrick,
did.
how do you feel? You got a white drug dealer who's with you, a white cop who's with you. Do you feel kind of like in a way that you feel validated on some level?
Validated?
Yeah.
I mean,
There's nothing to be validated about.
Right
There's
is
nothing-
right is right,
There's
yeah.
nothing to be validated.
No,
You did
I don't
wrong.
mean validated that you were wrong. I mean validated in the sense that you get, maybe I misspoke, supported.
Support.
Yeah,
A sense of
there's
support.
some type of dialogue. You know, once we understand the philosophy of what's going on,
Well,
yeah.
then we could address the
That's a good
And that's the
situation.
reason for this conversation.
Philosophy is a key word. Years
Yeah.
and years ago, there was a psychology was written about from ranch house to station house. Guys were coming from East Cupcake, Long Island, and coming into the city, into the ghetto, to try to do the job, and had no idea that people hung out on their stoops,
Yeah.
drank a can of beer in a brown paper bag. That was their livelihood.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, that they had 2 jobs. Now it's only supposed to get better, and what I mean by that is, as we have multicultural people coming into the police department, and these areas get gentrified where there's both black and white and Hispanic and Muslim and Jews and Christians all living together. And the makeup of the police department is people that get represented, and we have this neighborhood community officer program. It's going to be one big harmonious, homogeneous situation.
We're talking about all this stuff, and I wonder, and I can't help it. I mean, you were in that system years ago. You're no longer. You're out now. And we discussed it, I think, on the last show. How many rogue cops are there, and how systemic is it? So this is from USA Today, and I'm reading this, and I'm kind of thinking, holy shit. I mean, it's just staggering to read this. The USA Today network, New Jersey spent 2 years conducting the first ever comprehensive review of more than 30,000 pages of police documents, court filings, lawsuits, and settlements from nearly every one of New Jersey's 565 municipalities, okay? This is what they found. Bad cops have beaten, sexually harmed, and killed scores of people because the state's fractured law enforcement oversight system is ill-equipped to identify and fire rogue officers before they cause harm. Number 2, dozens of towns have collectively paid at least a staggering $42 million, of which you guys pay, New Jersey taxpayers pay, $42 million to settle allegations of police abuse that involved 19 deaths and 131 injuries and other misuse of police powers. At least 68 cops facing discipline were given a total of more than $700,000 in tax money to quietly resign. So they're not really doing anything. They're just saying, go away, right? They're not getting the accountability that they need, and they deserve. At least 3 found new jobs in law enforcement. So after they were caught fucking around, they went to another police department. 113 police departments have no written police mandating random drug testing, which leaves 1.4 million residents at risk from cops who abuse drugs. And the press investigation is prompting change, reporting on 1.1 million in police lawsuit settlements. Now, I read this and I think, wow, New Jersey is like the wild, wild west was back in the 1800s, right? Do you get a sense of that? In other words, after what I've read to you, right? Yes or no? Just quick, because
No.
with time.
No, I hear that, and they say, you know what? It's an antiquated system that there's so many municipalities. They should more centralize it, decentralize it, centralize it. Go on the county level, bring everybody tighter. you got all these small mom and pop police departments, and all they want to do is be tough. They all want to be tough guys.
So how do you do? You decentralize?
So you decentralize. You take these small how many municipalities are there that make up the county? So
yeah,
you
but you said there's all these mom and pop police departments, and they want to be tough guys. So that's in a way that's decentralization. If you have a small department,
yeah, so you take away the decentralization and you centralize it into the county level.
Oh, I see. Centralize.
Bergen. Okay, and now you bring everybody in. And now you have the resources where instead of everybody paying taxes that are going out in different directions, they're going out to the county police.
Let's lobby for Bill to be a police commissioner.
He knows.
And then you can have the drug testing, and then you can have the internal affairs, and you can have tougher supervision.
We had this conversation last time, if I remember,
Right, and
about
what are your thoughts on what I specifically because when I read this, I think it's systemic.
Listen, I don't
think it's
know.
systemic?
No, I'm saying I don't know. I mean, Bill. I mean, it's Bill's area.
Well, Bill has
of
a great.
expertise,
He's got a great.
I don't.
He's got a great approach to combat this, but.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know enough about this stuff.
A lot of it's in the training, and unfortunately, the training in the NYPD, they train the hell out of them. But what the heck are they actually teaching them? I mean.
You know, who are they letting on the force?
And who are the guys that are actually doing
mean,
the training? You got guys that don't want to be on patrol, so they go into the academy, and what's their experience? And what's their experience dealing with people when supposedly you've got a safe city, and now this guy was out on a patrol car for 2.5 years. What was his interaction in a safe city? Nothing.
How many New York City cops are there?
I think there's like 40,000.
Around, a little under 40, I would say.
40,000. Would you happen to know the percentage, or out of 40?
He doesn't know that. He doesn't do studies.
I mean, no,
But you're asking what bothers me that I see out there? Does anybody work in a radio car anymore? You got all these specialized teams. I know we got counterterrorism and this and that,
Yeah.
but as far as a numerical car, drive it down with a precinct number, where are those guys? I don't see them.
Any earth-shattering thoughts, Patrick? Only if they're earth-shattering.
I'm happy to hear a lot of this different perspectives on the.
Quickly, we're past 1 minute.
I'm gonna talk about Jimmy.
Good.
When you addressed her earlier and you didn't agree with what she said, this is what I have to say. We always it's gonna be a different perspective, because I'm black and you're white.
Really? I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
You did.
The thing is, I mean,
Wait a minute. Time out. Jimmy.
No,
listen,
you see what I'm saying? See,
I see. No, wait a minute. Time out. Jimmy. We can't get into another argument because we have to conclude. But hold on, I just want to comment on what he said. You can't say, I know what you're trying to say. You're trying to say, I didn't notice that because we're all equal, right? We're all human beings.
It's not even
but
that.
you can't say that you didn't notice that he's not black.
Of course I know he's black.
Right.
My point is, you can't break everything down to color.
No, I agree.
It can't
I
be
agree.
color
Patrick, you
all
agree
the
with that?
I agree with that. Not
Okay.
everything.
Let Patrick finish. Go ahead.
Incidents that happened to me and the people that I know.
I agreed with you.
I was
on your side 100%, man.
Yeah.
Right.
100%.
Okay, so is that it?
Yeah.
Ivory?
You have to come in with the level of empathy. My lifestyle and my identity is going to affect the way that I live my life and navigate it. Your identity is going to change your perspective in the way that you navigate life. And so if I disagree with you, that's because there's an intrinsic part of my identity that affects that. Me being black, me being a woman, that has a large influence on the way that I perceive the world and the way the world perceives me. So empathize with that. Try to respect that. Try to understand, why am I thinking so differently from you? And I will try to do the same to you. And then when you see why it's different, there's stories behind that, there's history behind that, there's systemic racism behind that, there's privilege behind that. And that's the types of things that we need to examine.
All I ask of you is for you to prove these words are true. You better learn to show consideration. All I ask of you is to listen to my point of view. You better learn to show consideration. You should have learned to show consideration. consideration.